supataraye ashman vishwani deva vayunani vidvan yodi asmad chuhuranam mino bhuvishtamate nam yuktim videma. So, translation, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your lotus feet, at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, Mahesh, you want to recite the verse?
Yes, Prabhu. Agnenaya supataraya smat vishwani deva vayunani vidvan yuyoti asmat juhuranma ino kuisam tenam yuktim videma agnenaya saraya smat vishwani deva vayunani vidvan yuyoti asmat juhuranmaino Visam Tena Yuktim Videma Agnenaya Sarayasma Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yuyodhyasma Juhuranmaino Visam Tena Yuktim Videma. Translation. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances. Falling on the ground at your feet, O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress.
Okay. Last, I think last week, we
Shital
had
Prabhu,
this.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you make me the host, please? By mistake, for some reason you became the host now. We could not manage things if you don't make us the host. Thank you.
Let me check, Prabhuji. Okay. Stop sharing. Security. Yeah, I think it's done, Prabhuji, now. Yeah, have a look.
Yeah, I've again made you co-host. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So last week we already discussed the translation, and I think we've been through almost half purport has been finished. So we'll point from that point onwards today. Marish, you can still able to read properly? Can you able to see?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So I think last point that we discussed, that was such is the omnipotence of the Lord. He can make man born in a Brahmana family as degraded as low-born dog eater, and he can also make a low-born dog eater superior to a qualified Brahmana simply on the strength of devotional service. So Lord is all powerful one. So we discussed this point in quite in detail, but again that will again come further in the purport. So let's start with actually next paragraph here, and we can continue discussion. Let me know if you need to zoom in more, Mayurish.
Since the omnipotent Lord is situated within the heart of everyone, He can give direction to his sincere devotees by which they can attain the right path. Such direction are specially offered to devotees even if he desires something else. As far as others are concerned, God given sanctions to the doer only at the risk of the doer. But in the case of devotee, the Lord directs him in such a way that he never acts wrongly. The Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 5, verse 48 says, Swapadamulam Vajata Priyasya Tyastanya Bhavasya Hari Paresha Vikramaya cha
Vikarma.
Vikarmaya Vikarmaya cha Potapatitam Kanthanchita Dunoti Sarvam Pradishmivista. The
Yes,
Lord is
it's
so kind.
स्वपादमूलं भजतः प्रियस्य व्यक्तान्यभावस्य हरिपरेशः विकर्म यचकोत्पतितं कथाञ्चित् धुनोति सर्वं हृदि सन्निविष्टः. Okay, so translation now. Yeah.
The Lord is so kind to devotee who is fully surrendered to his lotus feet that even though the devotee sometimes fall into the entanglement of vikarma, acts against the Vedic directions, the Lord at once rectifies such a mistake from within his heart. This is because the devotee are very dear to the Lord.
Yes. So here, so Prabhupada, right here, the omnipotent Lord is situated within everyone's heart. So, Lord is omnipotent, He's all powerful, and He is situated in everyone's heart, And there are many references in Bhagavad Gita. Uh, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshi Arduna Tishtati Sarvasya Chaham Ridishinni Vishtu. So, there's many times actually mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as well that Lord as a Paramatma, He is actually residing in the heart of each and every living entity. And he gives the directions, to his sincere devotees by which they can attain to the right path. Such directions are especially offered to the devotee, even if he desires something else, As far as others are concerned, so non-devotees here, Srila Prabhupada talking about, God gives sanction to the doer only at the risk of the doer. But in case of devotee, Lord directs him in such a way that he never acts wrongly. So there is a difference given actually how actually Lord, Lord Krishna deals with devotees and non-devotees. So he is actually, as we know, that he's actually equal to everyone. He's not partial, but actually there is a special relationship between devotee and the Lord. The actually Lord in the heart of the devotee and devotee, they also actually very close and very dear to the Lord as well. So here, for ordinary people, who are not devotees, non-devotees, so God gives sanction to the doer only at the risk of the doer. So whatever person desires, so anything he want to do, he still need a sanction. And Paramatma actually sanction this as per their desire, but at their own risk. As a Paramatma, he tells everyone what is right and what is wrong. So it is very nicely explained in Bhagavad Gita as well. Upadrashta Anumantacha. So Upadrashta, so he's witnessing everything. Paramatma, he's actually sitting in everyone's heart. That he's witnessing everything what the actually living entity is doing. He's keeping account. And Anumanta, he's also actually giving Anumati or sanction to all that they desire to do. So sanction is needed, and he's sanctioning for the actually non-devotees. He sanctions, but at their own risk. So if they choose to do actually sinful activities, then they have to actually take the karmas and suffer accordingly. However, when the devotees, who are actually very much surrender unto his lotus feet. The actually Srila Prabhupada writes here that actually he gives a direction to his sincere devotees by which they can attain to the right path, and such directions are especially offered to your devotee. Even if he desires something else, as far as the even if he desires something else. So for devotees, when Bhagavad Gita seed verses talks about this point, Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yena mamupiyantite, one who's always, satatam, always engaged in serving the Lord with love. Lord gives the actually intelligence, from within his heart, and by using that intelligence, they can attain to the Lord. And the very next verse says that Tesham mevanu kampartam aham agnan jamatamaha nashami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvata. So to show them a special mercy, to the devotees, Lord who's residing in their heart, actually he destroys the actually with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So if there is actually the ignorance that is actually born out of a the darkness that is born out of ignorance. So actually Lord is actually imparting the knowledge, that can actually destroy that ignorance, that actually darkness. So actually Lord is giving instruction to his devotees. There is special care is taken care of for the devotees, and he direct them in such a way that they actually do not actually they go onto the wrong path. Okay, and the next verse is a reference is given from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 5, verse 42. Swapad Moolam Bhajata Priyasya ताक्तान्य भावस्य हरि परेशः विकर्म यचकोट पतितम कथांचिद धुनोति सर्वम हृदिशन्यविष्टा. So Lord is so kind to devotee who is fully surrendered to his lotus feet that even though the devotee sometimes falls into the entanglement of vikarma, act against the Vedic directions, the Lord at once rectifies such mistakes from within the heart, because devotees are very dear to the Lord. So here there is a special mercy bestowed upon the actually the devotees, who are actually surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and actually one who actually worship the Lord, giving up all the engagements, other engagements, and to take the full shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Hari. They actually those devotees are very dear, as Srila Prabhupada explained, that very dear to the Lord. And such surrender soul, even they actually accidentally commits any sinful activities, or act against the Vedic injunctions, the actually Lord who's seated in their heart, they immediately actually takes away the reactions to the sins, and they actually guide them on the right path. So the surrender is very important. Actually, one who surrender at the lotus feet. So what is the surrender means? So surrender is actually not just actually offering the obeisances, the nirpranam, but to actually faithfully following the instruction given by the Lord, in the form of the scriptures, or even actually the instruction coming from the spiritual master, because he's a representative of the Lord. So actually accepting and implementing the instruction, that means actually real surrender. So as we actually do this, then actually our heart will be actually slowly cleansed off, from all this sinful reaction. All this dirt will washed away, and ultimately, as we actually studied in Nectar of Instruction, that the devotees, they actually put under the special protection of the internal potency, whereas non-devotees, they are always under the they always stay under the maya, the external potency of the Lord. So when they are under internal potency, under the protection of internal potency, they are very much protected by the Lord, by his potency, so that is the advantage, that actually once you achieve that shelter, you progress very fast on this path of actually bhakti. So that is a point actually to be understood, how actually the relationship between the Lord and the living entity, and what is the difference when you become a devotee and when you are non-devotee. Okay. Okay, we'll continue now. Let me share the screen. Hare Krishna Maharish. Continue the reading, please.
In this mantra of the Isopanishad, the devotee prays to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. To err is human. A conditioned soul is very often apt to commit mistakes, and only remedial measure to take against such an unintentional sin is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord, so that He may guide you to avoid such pitfalls. The Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of His direction. Such directions are given to the sincere devotee in two ways. One is by way of the sense, scriptures, and spiritual master, and the other is by way of the Lord Himself, who resides within the heart of everyone. Thus, the devotee, fully enlightened with Vedic knowledge, is protected in all respects.
Okay. So here in the Sri Ishopanishad, devotee prays. So this is a prayer, as we discussed, and he's praying for what? He's praying to the Lord to rectify him from within his heart. To err is a human. Conditioned soul is often apt to commit mistakes, and the only remedial measure to take against such unintentional sins is to give oneself up to the lotus feet of the Lord, so he may guide one to avoid such pitfalls. So here, the actually the to err means human, right? So all actually human beings, they have the propensity to commit mistakes, as we know. The four defects, the living entities, conditioned living entities, they are always under illusion. Their senses are imperfect, and they actually there is a propensity to commit mistake. So here that everyone actually commits mistakes, but the important thing when we actually try to become a devotee or try to progress on this path, those mistakes should not be committed intentionally. So Srila Prabhupada says that actually remedial measure against such unintentional sins, unintentional is very important. So we cannot knowingly commit sinful activities. That is not devotee. We know that we are actually in this material world, and there is always a struggle with the Maya. And actually our senses, they want to enjoy. Our mind is not within our control. So we are actually, by following these instructions, we try to actually control our senses and try to engage in devotional service. So there may be actually occasions that we may fall down. For there's a temporary fall down. So some actually sinful acts may happen. But that should be unintentional. So if that happens, that can be actually remedified by actually surrendering completely, accepting one's own mistakes, and actually surrendering completely at the lotus feet of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada here says that then actually, once you actually surrender, then the Lord may guide one to the avoid such pitfalls. The Lord takes charge of fully surrendered souls. Thus, all problems are solved simply by surrendering oneself unto the Lord and acting in terms of His directions. So, such directions are given to the Lord in two ways. One by the way of saints, scriptures, and spiritual master, and the other is by the way of Lord Himself, who resides within the heart of everyone. So here, actually by surrendering completely at the lotus feet of the Lord will solve all the problems, right? So how that actually, so in Bhagavad Gita, that's a very famous verse, chapter 18, verse 66. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishami masusha. So Lord Krishna is very boldly declared in Bhagavad Gita in the 18th chapter, the concluding chapter. So he says that actually one who actually surrender unto his lotus feet, unconditionally, he actually gives the protection from all his past sins. Maybe in this life, whatever sins are committed in the past life, he will take away the reactions. And actually he gives the assurance to those devotees that they do not need to fear. So one who actually giving up all other activities, all the dharmas, various religions, occupational duties, So one who does that and actually who surrenders sincerely, actually accepting Lord as the supreme, and actually who's actually accepting the instructions and try to implement the instruction. So for them, actually, this simple reaction from the past is nullified by the Lord Himself. So that is exactly is the prayer, this prayer that actually the devotee is praying, that actually he knows everything, whatever devotee has done in the past, present. So he actually requesting Lord to actually protect him from all those sin. So there will not be any hindrances on his path to progress further on this devotional path. And Bhagavad Gita actually confirmed that point, that actually by surrendering like that, unconditionally, one can be actually protected completely by the Lord, and they can very nicely progress after that. And actually, some instructions are given to the devotee in a two ways. The first way is by way of saints, scriptures and spiritual master. So this point, actually also very nicely explained that the prayer that we sing at the beginning of the program, Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, by actually, the translation says that actually by regularly attending the classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and actually sincerely serving the devotees of the Lord, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and the loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord, whose glories are actually sung, is actually irrevocably established. So, actually the same point is confirmed. So in that verse it says that there are actually a scripture, that is a scripture is a Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, and actually the guru or spiritual master is also called a walking Bhagavatam, because they implement the instruction of a Bhagavatam in practice in their lives. So actually Lord in the form of the actually spiritual scriptures, so spiritual master, and this actually the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, actually he's directing his devotees, and he also sitting within their heart. He's giving instruction from within the heart as well. So, thus, devotee fully enlightened with the Vedic knowledge is protected in all respect. So, protection is given in all these actually three forms. Through the scriptures, through the spiritual master, and his instructions, and also Lord is actually directing them from within the heart, one who is actually surrendered at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. Okay. Okay, Mayuresh, continue please.
Vedic knowledge is transcendental and cannot be understood by mundane educational procedures. One can understand the Vedic mantras only by the grace of the Lord, and the spiritual master is the Deve Parabhakti, Itha Deve Tatha Guru. One takes shelter of bona fide spiritual master. It is to be understood that he is obtained the grace master of the devotee. Thus,
Of the
the
Lord.
spiritual master, the Vedic and the Lord Himself from within all guide the devotee in full strength. In this way, there is no chance for a devotee to fail again into the mire of material illusion. The devotee thus protected all around, sure to reach the ultimate destination of perfection. The entire process is hinted in this mantra and Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, verse 2, 7, 2 and 17 to 20. Explains further.
Okay.
Hearing the
So,
chanting of the
Hare
glories
Krishna. Mayuresh, stop there. Okay. So here, the Vedic knowledge, is a transcendental and cannot be understood by mundane educational procedures. So that is very important point to be. Actually, we need to understand that actually the Vedic knowledge is transcendental, and you cannot just understand by mundane educational procedures. So you cannot just actually, one day wake up and actually go and read and you understand everything perfectly. That doesn't happen. Even actually I tried before I come into contact with Srila Prabhupada and Hare Krishna WECAN. I tried to read Bhagavad Gita, but I couldn't understand anything. So one has to actually take the shelter of a Guru Shishya Parampara. One has to approach the bona fide spiritual master if they actually want to understand the actually this Vedic literature. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says that one can understand the Vedic mantras only by the grace of the Lord and the spiritual master. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru. So this is a reference actually given by Srila Prabhupada here. And that is from Svetashwar Upanishad, chapter 6, verse 23. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha guru. Tasaite kathita hi artaha prakashante mahatmana. So Srila Prabhupada, actually, I found this reference. So I'll just read it to you. It's very nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. It is further stated that Tusseyam Sarva Bhutatma Guru Shushushaya and Taranti Anjo Bhavaranam. Simply by rendering service to spiritual master, one crosses the ocean of nescience and return home back to Godhead. Thus, he gradually sees the Supreme Lord face to face and enjoys life in association with the Lord. The ultimate goal of yoga is to come in contact with Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless this point is achieved, one's so-called yoga practice is simply labor without any benefit. So here it says that actually by having an implicit faith into what the spiritual master and the Lord, then actually all the import of Vedic knowledge, so all the Vedic knowledge will be actually revealed to you. But one has to develop that implicit faith in spiritual master and the Lord. So that is very important. So the nectar of instruction, when we studied, so that point is actually mentioned there as well, where it says that one should have the full, faith that actually Lord Krishna will protect us, and one should ready to actually accept the instruction given. So by having the actually implicit faith in the Lord and this spiritual master, and further Srila Prabhupada says that by only rendering service to spiritual master, one can cross the ocean of nescience and return back home, back to Godhead. So serving the spiritual master is very, very important. You cannot approach Krishna directly. You have to go through your actually spiritual master, who's a bona fide in the Guru Shish Parampara. So by actually rendering service means actually, yes, there is actually again, as we have mentioned this point many times before as well, that serving a spiritual master means there is two way you can actually serve. There is a Vapu Seva and Vani Seva. So Vapu Seva is actually rendering, actually services, actually staying in association and doing actually personal service to the spiritual master. That is good as well. But what is more important is the Vani Seva. So Vani means actually the instruction given by the spiritual master. As we know that actually Srila Prabhupada himself, he only meet his Guru Maharaj on 3 to 4 occasions only, But actually, the instruction given to him, he actually took he took it very seriously, and that's why Srila Prabhupada actually went to the West, America, to preach the science of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So actually having the implicit faith, in the spiritual master, and that is also mean that actually executing his orders, faithfully. So it doesn't matter how difficult it is, then you have to actually do it, So that way we can actually have that actually implicit faith in the words of your spiritual master and Lord Krishna. Then all the imports of Vedic knowledge are actually revealed to you. So that is actually the process given. One cannot actually understand the spiritual knowledge or Vedic literature by our actually ordinary, educational procedures, that we normally see in this material educational system. So that is not the way. Okay, and the next point, what is mentioned there is The Lord appear as a spiritual master for the devotee. Thus, the spiritual master, the Vedic injunctions, and the Lord Himself from within all guide the devotee in full strength. In this way, there is no chance for devotee to fall again into the mire of a material illusion. The devotee, thus protected all round, is sure to reach the ultimate destination of perfection. The entire process is hinted in this mantra. Uh, Actually, and there is again the reference is given from Srimad Bhagavatam, the actually Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 17 to 20. So we'll read further. So the important point is that actually devotee is actually fully protected. And which devotee? Who has actually implicit faith in his spiritual master, the Lord, and actually is fully surrendered, actually accepting and implementing their instructions. So for him, the full protection is given through the spiritual master, the scriptures, and Lord, who is actually within, actually sitting in the heart of the devotees. So there is no way that actually devotee can be actually fall into the material mire again. So actually, thus devotee who's actually protected, it becomes very easy for him to progress on this path and actually reach his actually final abode. So okay, may I just continue reading. So Srila Prabhupada has actually uh, kind of summarized, the instruction given in this actually Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 70 to 20. So these are very actually important verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's quite illuminating, that actually not from just 17, 1.2.6 to 21, And Srila Prabhupada actually has given the series of lectures on those verses, which is actually published as the way of transcendence, the book Dharma. So Srila Prabhupada has actually just, actually summarized that in one paragraph. And we can actually go through that. Just a minute. Okay, Marish.
Hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is itself an act of piety. The Lord wants everyone to hear and chant His glory because He is the well-wisher of hearing and chanting and then one's devotion upon the Lord. At this stage, the devotee acquires the Brahminical qualification, and the effects of the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, completely vanish. The devotee becomes fully enlightened by the virtue of his devotional service, and thus he comes to know the path of the Lord and the way to attain Him. As all doubts diminish, he becomes a pure devotee. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purport to Sri Isopanishad, the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, in this last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada, he summarized that hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord in itself is an act of piety. So we have all actually know the now importance, actually chanting, chanting and actually hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. The Lord wants everyone to hear and chant His glories because He is a well-wisher of all living entities. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, one becomes cleansed of all undesirable things, and then one's devotion becomes fixed upon the Lord. So, as we know that actually this is a very first point that actually we've been actually taught that actually the chanting, chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So this chanting is very very important. As we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So by chanting this Mahamantra and actually also the glories of the Lord that is given in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, one can actually purify themselves. Their heart can be purified, and this is also very nicely also explained in Shri Shishtastakam, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Bhavmaha Davagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitranam, Vidya Vadu Jivanam. So Cheto Darpana Marjanam, no? So that point there, that actually our heart, is actually covered with all this dust of all the sinful activities from the past, maybe from the millions of lives from the past. Our heart is actually covered with all this dirt, all this contamination. And that's why we need to chant every day, and as we chant, and as our chanting become very focused, and become actually offenseless, then actually all this dirt is slowly actually cleansed, from our heart. So it is said that Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the mirror of our heart, once actually that is cleaned from the process of chanting and hearing the glories and actually, serving the Lord and actually spiritual master, So all these processes will help to actually purify ourselves and our heart. And when that actually mirror is actually nicely clean, then actually one can actually see, the self, they're actually this real Sarup, and that is actually nothing but is actually the spirit soul. Then we can realize what is actually meant by I'm a spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi. And then we also realize that Srila Prabhupada always mentioned this point that actually one has to understand that they are spirit soul and they are the eternal servant of Lord Shri Krishna, who's a super soul, and there is this relationship. So actually our true actually occupational service is to render devotional service unto the Lord. So once we realize this, then actually one can actually become perfectly happy. So that's why it says that by actually cleansing of this all these undesirable things, then once devotion is actually fixed upon the Lord, and at this stage, devotee acquires Brahminical qualities, qualifications. So this is again very important that actually the Brahminical qualification will be acquired after one's heart is actually cleansed, so this is very important. This is not actually happen just by actually accepting the initiation, So one has to actually follow this process. So then actually all these actually Brahminical qualities will be actually acquired. So that way, and then once you are actually on this actually the mode of actually pure goodness, the effects of the lower modes, that is passion and ignorance, they actually vanquish. Devotee becomes fully enlightened by the virtue of a devotional service, and thus he comes to uh, know the path of the Lord and the way to attain him. As all doubts diminish, he becomes a pure devotee. So this is a concluding point. So this is nothing new. Actually, we have been actually told this instruction many times, but actually the way here, as translation says that actually what the devotee is praying here. Uh, O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on a right path to reach you. So actually devotee is praying, actually he's actually surrendered. He want to actually surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, who's omnipotent, who's all powerful. So that is another important point that actually Lord is referred here as omnipotent, all powerful. So as we know that actually we cannot really progress or find this supath, right path by our own endeavors. Actually we have to rely on the Lord's grace, His mercy, because He's the all-powerful one. We can actually do. We have to actually endeavor. The best we can do is to actually, actually try to implement the instruction given to us, by the spiritual master and instruction given in the scriptures. So whatever in our actually control, we can do that. The chanting, the actually devotional services, the actually studying the scripture, understanding the scripture. So we have to do that. So Bhagavad Gita, I mean, there are many instructions. Satatam kirtayanto mam. Uh, so actually, one has to actually chant the holy name of the Lord, constantly. Yatantasha dridavata. One has to be very firm, has a firm determination. Then actually you are actually all your efforts they will be actually finally will help us progress with the grace of the Lord, and that actually the prayer here to please lead me on the right path to reach you, so this is actually Srila Prabhupada is actually concluding that point in the last paragraph that as actually our heart is cleansed, our devotion is fixed, one actually acquires the Brahminical qualifications, and automatically the effect of the lower modes like passion and ignorance, they also diminish, and devotee become fully enlightened by the virtue of his devotional service. and then he come to this right path that will actually lead him to the Lord, and there is then it's become quite easier to attain him. As all doubt diminish, he become a pure devotee. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada has very nicely actually summarized all this instruction given in Srimad Bhagavatam, from the verse 17 to 20. I think if you read that, I think that's those are very, very important verses. We cannot really discuss all that within 10-15 minutes. Probably one verse will take the whole one class to discuss all those points. But Prabhupada has nicely actually summarized the process here, and actually the this is a prayer actually actually made by the devotee. Then actually the most important thing is to actually one has to actually surrender completely, without conditions. So that is actually within our control. We can do that, and also we need actually the mercy of a spiritual master. As it is said that actually just by serving spiritual master, one can actually cross this actually ocean of nescience. One can actually attain to this right path that will ultimately lead us to Lord Krishna, back home, back to the Godhead. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions on what we discussed so far? No? Okay. If you do still have any questions, you have still opportunity to post that in our intermediate group, WhatsApp group. Then we can actually discuss that next week. So please do so. So we still have time. So let's recite the verse and translation once again, and then actually we'll conclude this session. Okay. Agnenaya supataray ashman vishwani deva vayunani vidvan yodi asman juhuranam mino bhuishtam te nama yuktim videma. Agnenaya supataraye asman vishwani deva vayunani vidvan yodi asmat juhuranam mino bhuishtam te nam yuktim videma. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. Okay. Devanshi Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Just. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please recite the verse. Yeah.
Yeah, I can recite, but I have a very bad throat actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Can I read the translation? Would that be
Yes,
okay?
yes, Mataji, that's fine. If you can, yeah, if you can't do it, that's fine. Yeah.
I won't be able to sing.
Prabhu, I can
Actually.
let you.
Okay, okay.
O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins so that there will be no hindrance to my progress.
Yes, Mayush Prabhu.
Hello, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Should I sing the word, Prabhu?
Yes.
Agnenaya Suptaraya Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidman Yodi Asma Juhuran Maino Vistam Te Nam Yuktim Videma Agnenaya Suptaraya Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidman Yodi Asma Juhuran Maino Vistam Te Nam Victim Videma Agnenaya Suktarayasman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yuyotyasman Juhuran Mahino Vishtam Tenam Yuktim Videma. Translation. O my Lord, as powerful as power, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances. Falling on the ground at your feet, O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from reaction to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress.
Okay. Thank you, Mahesh. So we have actually now concluded, Shri Isopanishad, all the mantras. This is very, very important, especially all the prayers, all these last mantras that we actually studied in last 2 months. So probably actually please actually study all of them, because as you know there will be exam soon. So we are actually working on that, and probably we will post some actually notification in coming days, that actually we have planned to actually discuss a few things with each one of you, and then we will make a decision that actually how we actually will progress to the examination stage. If there is actually, I will discuss that with the Sanju Prabhu as well. Probably we may have another session, just actually recapping with reciting all the verses and translations, because we have been studying Shri Isopanishad for a very long time now, and there are 18 mantras, and most of the mantras, actually there is expectation that actually you should actually memorize all these mantras, by heart. So, but we haven't spent much time, reciting. So at least we should have one more session, going through all the mantras and actually reciting them and memorizing actually translations as well. So, okay, I think yeah, it's almost now 8 minutes left to our actually next class. So we will take a break, and we'll come back at 6 p.m. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Amrish Babu, for giving us opportunity to speak on these verses. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Thank you very much, Shita Prabhu, for a nice class. Hare Krishna. We'll see you all soon. Krishna willing. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.